Hello guys, it's Teenage DC Fan back in another video, and Batwoman returned for another week, its 13th episode of the season, and there's a vampire prowling in the streets of Gotham, and both Batwoman and the Crows are out to take her down before she can claim any more victims. Plus, the fallout from Kate's choices last week continues, and Alice just wants someone to love her. So just a quick warning, this video does contain spoilers for Batwoman, Season 1, Episode 13, Drink Me. So, as a big Batwoman comics fan, I was thrilled that it seemed like this week we were finally getting to experience some of the weirder sides of Kate Kane's two-dimensional life. The comics are full of supernatural monsters and horror tropes, and while Nocturna, the baddie at the center of this week's shenanigans, is a pretty major villain in the comics, here there's nothing otherworldly about her. Now, that doesn't mean she isn't a major vampiric thorn in Kate's side, or neck. Strangely, Nocturna, having little in common with her comic book counterpart, actually worked in the show's favor for at least one area. In the comics, Nocturna is responsible for driving a wedge between Kate and her loved ones. This Nocturna manages to create a variety of circumstances that actually bring them all closer, and though she may not be honest-to-goodness living dead, she is a serial murderer with a serious illness and a major chip on her shoulder. In fact, Batwoman's first encounter with Nocturna might have gone a lot worse for the vigilante if Batwoman hadn't endeared herself to one agent Sophie Moore already. After Kate is bitten by the not-quite-a vampire and paralyzed, Sophie manages to free her and distract her team long enough for Batwoman to get away. And it's a decision Sophie would come to not regret exactly, but certainly reconsider later on when it gets her into some trouble with her newly reinstated boss. In the meantime, though, their close quarters slow-motion exchange while Kate is tied up, and at Sophie's mercy is only the start of their renewed relationship drama this week. And they get to dig a little deeper into that drama later on, when Kate decides she's going to use her own bar to trap Nocturna, since she seems to only target club-goers out partying a little too hard. But not only is this the perfect way to lure a night-stalking wannabe bloodsucker, it's also a great excuse to put everyone in some truly incredible clothing, including a dressed-down tux on Kate, a well-tailored suit with, of course, a glow-in-the-dark tie on Luke, and a not-at-all field-ready but extremely stunning dress on Sophie. And even though all of them, with the exception of Mary, are there to go hunting, the entire event actually turns into an exercise in barely controlled jealousy when Kate swoops in to protect Sophie from a woman she thinks could be Nocturna and who is definitely trying to flirt with her ex. But all the partying and awkward conversations get cut short, though, when Alice decides to crash the party. And she's looking for Mouse, who disappeared last week when she was a little almost dead. And Kate has no answers for her, of course, so the two part ways, but not before Nocturna decides to make Alice her next victim. Not one to be a victim for long, Alice lets slip to her captor that someone else in Gotham has the holy grail of blood and sicks the vampire on Mary instead. And Kate eventually figures out that Nocturna's base of operations is inside an abandoned church, of course. Thanks in part to some fancy bell ringer rope, coupled with Luke's well-timed info about their target. Nocturna is actually Natalia Knight, a young woman with porphyria, I don't know, but some kind of disease or whatever. And her father worked at the church until his death a few weeks prior. And to be honest, while I did genuinely like this episode, they could have done a lot more with Nocturna. She's a girl with a terrible, debilitating illness who hates people that take their own health for granted. And it's a good place to start for a villain, but what exactly drove her to murder in order to help herself? Like, did she not have access to proper health care or something like that? And since she is a Batwoman villain in the comics, they honestly could have made her a season-long villain. So maybe this is just to set her up for next season, maybe. Because it's not like she died or anything. She went to Arkham Asylum, so she could always return at any time. But we don't get to learn much about Natalia as a person, because as soon as Kate shows up and sees Mary near death, she's not about to allow her to escape or really explain herself. And in a slightly surprising turn of events, just as Kate realizes she's not going to be able to stop Nocturna and save Mary's life, Alice shows up to play the hero. She's got O-negative blood and sets to work bringing Mary back, while Kate deals with the vampire using her extreme sun sensitivity and the UV packs on her utility belt to subdue her. And despite the fact that Nocturna doesn't really get a chance to be a character on all her own, the episode did provide a lot of excellent character work from the rest of the cast, starting with Kate's relationship to her sisters, starting with the one she tried to kill just a short time ago. And Rachel Scarsden continues to be the emotional backbone of this show, which is both thrilling to watch week after week and worrying when you consider that at some point Alice will be stopped, and she could someday be gone for good. This week she proves once again that Alice is just as much a victim as she is a villain, as the bulk of her screen time is spent more or less distraught by the fact that she's found herself alone once more. Mouse is missing. Kate chose a different Alice Beth person. Better version of her, I guess. And no one is around to care that she is hurting. It doesn't seem like Kate's all that interested in apologizing for choosing Beth over Alice, nor does she seem willing to express guilt or regret over her decision. So her Alice is a compelling Alice, but it's also a dangerous Alice. She may have taken some time off from terrorizing the city, but now that she knows Mouse's father is back in the picture, it looks like she's got a new target for her anger and violence. Meanwhile, and in what would have been the biggest news up until the final moments of the episode, Mary knows Kate is Batwoman. I wondered how long that was going to stay a secret, partly because Mary and her clinic are a perfect fit for the Batwoman operation. Because, Kate's going to need a doctor if she wants to continue putting herself in danger. And because keeping your identity a secret makes for sometimes boring television. So, since Mary isn't an idiot, she puts the extremely obvious pieces together and deduces that maybe, just maybe, her badass lesbian stepsister with obvious secrets is the vigilante who suddenly arrived in Gotham the same time as Kate. Who could have guessed? It's not like it's super obvious. So we don't know what Mary is going to do with this information, but I hope she remains completely herself and immediately confronts Kate about it. But speaking of people Kate can't seem to keep secrets from, up until the very end of the episode, it's still unclear whether Sophie knows it's Kate under that cowl. She guessed as much several weeks back when Julia Pennyworth helped Kate pull a bait and switch on her ex. Since then, though, the two have shared a few moments, including last week's shoulder touch, and they've developed a rapport that's about feelings as much as it is about crime fighting. It was only slightly surprising that Sophie backed down from killing Alice last week, and it's not at all surprising that she came to Batwoman's rescue this one. But getting close to a vigilante is dangerous for employment status, especially now that Jacob Kane is suddenly out of prison and back to running the Crows. So he considers Batwoman their greatest competition in Gotham and questions why Sophie didn't pull the trigger on Alice herself when she had the chance. Sophie knows that helping Batwoman could lead to the loss of her job, pretty much the only thing going right in her life, and yet she continues to allow herself to feel something for the new mask in town. So obviously Sophie can't explain to her boss that she and Batwoman seem to understand each other, that she makes good points sometimes about the role of the Crows, and certainly not that there's a good chance his own daughter is the one putting on that mask and making his life more difficult. Instead, she settles on Batwoman can help us, and all that stuff. Like we should be friends, and yeah. So she attempts to explain that the Crows have been losing credibility thanks to the whole Alice thing, and their continued march toward all authoritarian rule over a city already devastated by crime and corruption. So it doesn't go well for her, and when Jacob discovers that Sophie allowed Batwoman to escape, he suspends her from duty once again. Kate Kane is, at least in essence, the thing causing Sophie's entire life to unravel. And this whole thing with Jacob Kane, it just seems too good to be true. Like he just seems different, because first of all, at the beginning of the episode, we just find out that he's all of a sudden he's just out of jail. Like it didn't show anything that would give us a reason to believe like why he would be out of jail. But so that's why I'm thinking that this is not the real Jacob Kane, just like before. And no, I don't think it's Mouse, because Mouse has been captured by his father, but I think that this actually is Mouse's father, because we didn't see him or Mouse in this episode. So, yeah, I think that Jacob Kane is not Jacob Kane, and this is actually Mouse's father, whatever his name is. I don't really remember. So let me know in the comments below if you agree with that theory, or at least if this isn't the real Jacob Kane. So, back to Sophie. Instead of doing what she's done in the past, shutting down and running away, Sophie completely changes course. And she gets Batwoman to meet her and explains that their working relationship has gotten her in serious trouble, and then kisses her full on the mouth, an action Kate happily returns. And, it's great. Like, really, really great. These two have been dancing around their feelings for almost the full 13 episodes. And of course, there was no way the show could continue that bubbling up of tension before it boiled over. So they let it boil over. And while Sophie never actually says it's Kate behind the mask, and Kate never reveals her identity, she has to know, right? Right? I mean, if she doesn't, then things could get really complicated here. Because maybe she's in love with Batwoman, but not in love with Kate anymore. That would be weird. Now, another thing in this episode that I really liked is Luke. Luke's honestly probably one of my favorite characters on this show. It's between him and Luke, Mary, and Alice are my favorite characters on this show. So I love Luke. I'm so glad they gave him a personality this week, though. Like, he feels so much more relaxed and fun now, and it feels like the show is interested in making him that way. Now just give me a Luke-centric episode so we can really get to know him. And honestly, I think the main reason he had more of a personality in this week is because he actually left the Batcave. Because so far in every episode, the only time we've seen Luke is either in the Batcave or in the Wayne real estate building. So he needs to get out and have a life. Like, when he saw Sophie tonight in this episode, he had never seen Sophie before. I don't know how, but when he did, of course, he was like, damn. He thought she was hot. And honestly, I kind of agree. But anyway, next week, the latest villain to cross the Batwoman is a woman who is stealing faces in a much more obvious way than Mouse ever did. She's got her sights set on Sophie, it seems, and her specific MO looks like it will be calling out more than just Kate and the Crows. But Alice is also interested. And I don't believe Batwoman is actually on next week, which is honestly kind of stupid, and I'm getting tired of this thing, because Batwoman and Supergirl literally just had a 3-week break. And now they've been back for, 2-3 episodes? So, now, actually, no, this is only the second episode. So they have 2 episodes after the 3-week break, and now we're going to have another week break, and it's not going to be on until March. So that's disappointing. But I love this show, so I guess it's worth the wait. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on this episode down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.